Hey, greetings to all my friends, colleagues, everyone out there listening. Welcome in. This is Sam Collins, the coding and billing expert, with another episode for ChiroSecure and HJ Ross that kind of makes you understand what's going on, what's compliant, what do we need to do, what's happening with our business. Let's go to the slides. I want to specifically hit on cash, prepay packages, and membership plans, which some of you may not have been akin to, because there's been a real shift among where chiropractors are seeking patients. I mean, let's keep in mind cash is always king. Although insurance coverage is growing, many patients still have high deductibles, limited benefits, excluded services. We want a transparent self-pay pricing that can remain a major growth factor for your practice. And where's this at? Because in fact, you may have noticed, because I've consulted with these groups that do um, groups like the Joint or similar that do packages. But is packages really where we're moving? In fact, I've seen a movement away from packages, and I want to speak to you a little bit about what other things we can do. Obviously, we can do cash, just pay me. Can you give a discount? Sure. 5 to 15%, not very much. Of course, that's where the difference of packages come in. When you buy a package, now you can discount it far greater. But the downside to that is if you sell a package and a patient purchases 10 visits and they only use half of them, obviously now we have to have a refund policy. And sometimes when a person purchases a large amount, it may lead to issues where maybe down the road they just want it back. And so the compliance becomes a problem. This is why you've seen a shift and a movement towards something that are really called just membership plans. And I'm going to say this generically for all states, though I would say specifically you want to verify in your state, understand the rules and regulations. But for the most part, this is going to be generic for most. You may offer a membership plan, and they become increasingly common as ways to improve a discounted cash service. Because if I can only give 5 to 15%, maybe that's not as attractive. But these type of plans may offer a much steeper discount based upon a commitment without you putting a lot where you have to deal with refunds. What we have to do is understand, what are we attempting to do? Make your care more affordable, but also creating a value so you can have a predictable healthcare cost. Patient has a monthly plan, they know what they're getting, meaning maybe that monthly plan offers 2 visits a month plus 1 therapy, something of that nature. What we want to make sure is, I think this is viable, another way of creating a method for a person to come in. Think of it when you purchase a car. When you go to purchase a car, you can, of course, pay cash for it, but generally, if they tell you the full price of the car, most people will go, oh my God, I can't afford that. So what do? You get a monthly payment plan. Well, this is kind of what this does. The key factors here are making sure this is voluntary. You're not forcing anyone into it, but it's another way for them to access care. It'd be limited to self-pay patients or self-pay services. This is not for insurance at all. I'll clearly state what you're offering. Is this membership plan going to include 1 visit a month, 2 visits a month? And what's going to be the fee? What are the cancellations? And explain what unused visits will expire. What many people are doing now is they're offering these where they'll give a patient, 2 visits or 4 visits per month for a flat fee. If they come in for the visits, great. If they don't come in, they're just lost. So unlike when you prepaid services for multiple services, this is not so much a fee for service as a fee for access, and whether they access it, kind of like a gym membership. You have to be clear, though, to state it's not insurance, it's not a health plan, doesn't satisfy any health requirement, but it does create an access where someone thinks, hey, this could be affordable. Understand there's consumer protection here. Make sure you're setting aside what is the membership fee, what is included, what is not included. Like, by example, it might include 2 adjustments, but maybe doesn't include a massage. Then what is the massage price? What about cancellation process? What's a refund? Generally, what you do is give them a 30-day notice to cancel. And then the policy is just canceled. In other words, it's gone. But that way, it gives you that month to still treat them. I would set it up, and what many are doing is an automatic renewal. It's $89 a month for 2 visits. That way, the person has a predictable amount, they have access, and you encourage them to come in. We don't want them to not get the visit, but like a gym membership, if they don't show up, they just didn't access the benefit. Unlike a prepaid where now we have to worry about refunding, this doesn't. What I would be sure that you don't do is some type of unlimited medically necessary care regardless of cost. Okay, that you're not assuming a financial risk similar to an insurance plan. So you're not showing this as insurance and not replace it as insurance. In other words, it's just a predictable, hey, you're going to get 2 chiropractic visits per month. That's going to include an adjustment and whatever therapies you decide. By example, maybe it's $99 a month, up to 4 chiropractic adjustments, and then a discount maybe for additional services. Here's what you're trying to do. Create a value to your service where someone can come in and go, hey, is that worth it to me to spend $90 a month? Okay. Make sure it's a clear statement of membership, not insurance. And it's generally defensible because you're not selling a large prepaid treatment package. It's transparent what they're getting. Because if someone buys 40 visits and after 10 visits, they're feeling pretty good, I don't want to come in anymore. This is something a little bit different. I think create something where you can get a pretty good revenue from it and allow a person to pay cash that's affordable. Here's the bigger picture I see with it. Does this allow you to discount far greater than the 5 to 15% for cash? So in other words, you can say, hey, our cash price is $100 a visit. Just saying. But now what we offer, if you want to buy our memberships, it's $99 a month and it gives you 2 visits. So therefore you're selling at $50, a much lesser amount, but it's encouraging a patient to come in. They come in, get an adjustment, maybe a therapy, not a lot away from you. And I think it really focuses on the wellness of the patient, particularly people that do a lot of functional medicine or wellness style. This can work really, really great. Realize though, some states are going to have a higher scrutiny, and here's a few. Anytime there's an auto renewal, there has to be an easy cancel. Avoid statements in New Jersey about it being insurance. Make sure services are defined, not unlimited. In other words, get into the protocol of what is exactly going to cover. Define for the patients what the cost is. Be transparent. Your patients should love you for it because this is something going to go, wow, I can make access to it. I can afford this. Let's face it, some of your patients may have copays now in the $70 to $90 range, which discourages them from coming in. But if all of a sudden they can say, hey, for that same money, I can get much more, I think we're far better off. Just keep in mind, if the patient does have insurance and you're contracted with them, that changes things. We have to be careful. If we're doing it with insurance, I'm going to say, no, this is outside of that. We make sure it's written, cancellations, refund, no misleading advertising, clear expiration, and that it should be cash only services, things that insurance is not going to cover if they have it. So let's say you're a member of a plan and a certain service is excluded. Could you do a membership for the excluded services? Yes. Document that, but state what is covered by insurance and not. By far the safer issue. Do it for patients that have really bad insurance, high deductibles, which is a lot of people now, and create some access to your office. This is why you've seen the growth and really the pivot away from a lot of these membership plans when I'm talking about the joint and similar that are moving towards this. Now, remember, if it's Medicare, that's going to be a little bit of a problem because Medicare does cover spinal manipulation. So membership should be outside of that. Now, if you say, well, I don't want to join Medicare, that creates a whole nother problem because does the patient then going to say, I don't want to use my Medicare? It puts you in a position, I'm going to say stick with it being out of network coverage means, or I should say not out of network, but things that aren't cover excluded. So for a Medicare patient, maybe it's 2 visits for the adjustments as needed, or excuse me, not adjustments at all, but for therapies. We just have to be careful with Medicare. Is it seen as enticement? So long as it's an excluded service, I think you're okay. And then what about auto and workers' comp? I don't think it should include it at all. It's outside of it. There would be no reason for that. That's the reason there's auto and work comp. That's an auto coverage that pays decently. I'm talking about patients that have that really poor insurance, high deductibles and otherwise, that otherwise essentially are cash patients. We're going to cover this in a lot more detail and more in our upcoming seminars end of this month, but I'm going to say members get in contact with me for more. But I do think this is a viable thing to do. Memberships, again, indicate not health insurance. What is included? What about insurance? And doesn't apply to workers' comp, personal injury, and cancel it at any time. Be transparent. Just like with anything, a person that understands the value, I think, is going to be more likely to get the service. As always, if you're a member, get in touch with me. Let's talk about it or come up to an upcoming seminar. My point to you all, let's focus in on making our practice continue to thrive and go, and cash and memberships can be a way for you. Until next time, my friends.